Public historians, thankfully, do work side by side, communicating with and engaging others. This public historians, and indeed the history profession as a whole, must do if history and historians are to remain relevant. Again, marketers understand that they must make a connection with audience. Historians need to convince a broad audience that history is relevant and essential to have in their everyday lives, that history as a whole is something they cannot live without, that it is valuable, useful, desirable, and in their own intellectual, societal, and economic self-interest. Public history now is entering its fourth decade itself, encounters yet another stormy present, another potential job crisis amid a period of economic uncertainty. Excuse me. In some ways, that public history movement has come full circle. Only this time, public historians may lead the way to sustaining job growth in the historical profession. We've been leading the way for 30 years, finding new ways to put history to work in meaningful ways. But are historians trained within the academy adequately prepared to work in non-traditional roles? We need to encourage all historians to seek an expansive horizon of historical practice, prepare them to navigate and work actively and effectively within that larger world that we as public historians embrace. Are historians, in fact, sufficiently paying attention to our audience, that public that craves a closer personal connection with history? Or have we ceded some of that space to authors, journalists, and filmmakers, some of whom do an admirable job, as I believe we heard last night with our plenary speaker? The marketplace is always changing. Perhaps it's time we pause, gather data, and assess. Where have history graduates found employment in the past? Where will jobs be now and in the future? Are we fully aware of the needs of those in the marketplace doing the hiring? And do public history graduate students have necessary practical skills to be entrepreneurial? As fields such as archives, preservation, and museum management become more specialized, adopting credentialing, professional certification, and PhD requirements for senior positions, can public history MA graduates compete in those roles? And even as they prepare students to enter the job market as public historians, some of our colleagues within the academy still struggle for a recognition of their work within traditional academic tenure and promotion system that rewards teaching, research, and publishing, but too often devalues as service the scholarship and work of public historians. NCPH is currently spearheading a joint working group to address this issue. And while progress has certainly been made, we should continue to push for recognition of public history work within the academy, but moreover, work to influence the structure in which historians are educated and convince academic bureaucracy that civic engagement should be an imperative and not merely just an institutional buzzword. As the National Council on Public History moves into its fourth decade as an organization, it too is overdue for its own season of introspection. It is time to cast a critical eye toward our programs and priorities, evaluating what functions effectively and what does not, and to target what more we need to do to help public historians and all historians compete and thrive in the current and future economic climate in which the only certainty will likely be uncertainty. Now and moving forward, NCPH as a community will be more important than ever. Inclusiveness, not exclusivity, diversity, not division, is the key to our future. We must continue to expand our membership base to encompass retooling academics, attract allied disciplines such as oral history, archives, and preservation. We need to engage our membership and encourage them to claim ownership of NCPH and take an active self-interest in NCPH as their community. You are all stakeholders in NCPH. You are our best advocates and evangelists of public history. Word of mouth and peer-to-peer promotion can do more to publicize NCPH than any mailing or advertising we can create. In that regard, it's up to each of you to help ensure the future of NCPH into its next 30 years. We need to introduce public history to undergraduate students, those millennials who seek community involvement and professional fulfillment. We need to put our energies into member retention as well. Networking and community are essential more now than ever for graduate students, recent graduates, and new professionals. We must nurture and mentor that new generation of public historians. We want to engage our membership year-round, capture some of that energy and enthusiasm of our annual meeting, and provide more opportunities for public historians to gather and exchange ideas through social media and other web-based channels. NCPH must also remain at the forefront of advocacy for history and historians, and take action on advocacy issues affecting our members' profession and the humanities generally. NCPH, as a professional organization, must also now shift its obligations and responsibilities to embrace that entrepreneurialism and self-sufficiency that has long characterized individual practitioners of public history. If public historians at NCPH are going to illuminate pathways into the future, we need your involvement and we need your support. I realize this afternoon that perhaps I've posed a lot of questions more than offered answers. But I do think that this organization, this community of historians committed to promoting the utility of history and public service, can play a leading role in making history useful to others and making historians relevant in spite of themselves. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. That is the renewed challenge and calling of public history once again as it enters middle age. In a presidential address a few years ago, a former NCPH president told an anecdote about a blind man beating his dog. Slightly disturbing anecdote, I might add. And so I would like to close with an animal story of my own, because I cannot hope to match Bob Weibel in his oratorical employment of obscure Bob Dylan lyrics. Okay. The week before I started my graduate studies in public history at UC Santa Barbara, I took a trip to Alaska, backpacking in Denali National Park. Now, Denali, as you may know, is a magnificent wilderness, home to the tallest mountain in North America, and Ursus horribilis, the grizzly bear. Denali grizzlies are smaller than their salmon-fed coastal cousins, consisting mostly on a diet of small mammals and berries. Still, my companions and I hiked into that wilderness, acutely aware we were entering an unforgiving and unfamiliar environment where we were not the top of the food chain. We reached our destination and set up our camp, congratulating ourselves on our survival skills. Then, just minutes later, looked up to see a grizzly bear running full tilt up the slope directly towards our camp. So we did what we had been instructed to do, which was stand up tall and scream at the top of our lungs, which, really wasn't all that difficult right at that moment. The startled bear stopped, rose up on its hind legs, sniffed the air, and ambled off in another direction. Our relief soon turned to chagrin when we'd realized that we'd pitched our tents in the middle of the biggest blueberry patch for miles around. Are public historians the interlopers who have pitched their tents in the berry patch of traditional historical practice? Or are public historians the bear who, after consideration, has decided to pursue a new direction, embarking on a different journey? Perhaps individually and together as public historians, we will always face bears, uncertainty, challenges, and redirection in the paths we have chosen. But joy and fulfillment is in the journey and not just the destination. So you might as well stand up tall and declare, I am a public historian. For it is through the work you do as a public historian that you will demonstrate that history can offer the promise of a useful past, with tangible benefits adding real value to the communities in which we live and work. That the research methodologies, critical thinking, and analysis of the trained historian can and do have practical value in government policy, business, museums, education, and consulting. That historians provide a valuable professional and public service. And to have the opportunity to share your knowledge and appreciation of history with others and work with them to explore their own past is an integral part of our human experience. And as public historians, may you feast upon the certain knowledge that our history is important to our own well-being and that of our communities, and that in putting history to work, the work of public historians can truly make a difference. Thank you.